to my channel, and we have another review of a car from the very old ages. So this car is a 1953 and it's called Pontiac. Pontiac was a car that was produced by a division of General Motors Company. For all of you who didn't know, General Motors Company was the company which was assisting the Americans from 1942 all the way until the end of the Second World War II. So this company assisted the Americans in terms of production of bombs and production of tanks. So as a result, the production of cars rapidly decreased, but because there was a lot of years which was spent in terms of fighting for the war, the designs of cars, it became very static. It was no longer moving. General Motors came up with the idea that, you know what, since now we have finished fighting the war, we need to come up with a design that's going to be more suited for the younger people, you know, because the older ones have gone to war. As a result, they came up with this design that you are looking at. So the aim was to come up with a design that was very streamlined and a car that looked beautiful at the same time for both young and old people, but at the same time the middle population should be able to afford. So this is the car that they came up with. So in terms of the MSRP, this car back in 1953, it was going to be going for around $2,000. So you can just imagine how much that would be in terms of today's money when you equate inflation, especially how much the inflation is. So that's definitely a lot of money. Translate that in terms of rands, that's approximately 40,000 rands. This car product, in terms of production, the production started from 1949 all the way through to 1958. So it wasn't really a long production. So that's because the sales were not really very high, because there were other cars which were produced by General Motors which offered more power. So there was many engine choices that you had the option to choose from back in 1953 when this car was produced. So this car first came in a 6-cylinder because petrol was very cheap back then. So in terms of power output, there was the one for 90 horsepower, there was the one for 93 horsepower, there was another one for 103 horsepower, there was another one for 106 horsepower. All these engines were 6-cylinder, and but the top speed was very laughable. So the top speed was 100 kilometers per hour, or in terms of miles it was 60 miles per hour. So in terms of speed, you are not gonna keep up today in terms of our speed limit in South Africa, which is 120 kilometers per hour. But in terms of acceleration, it's not so bad when you compare to cars that we find today. So this car could accelerate from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour or 60 miles per hour in 14.9 seconds. I know you would laugh. You'd be like, okay, it still is slow, but it's fast when you compare, for example, a Polo Vivo, which has 77 kilowatts and 153 newton meters of torque, 1.6 liter engine. This car accelerates from 0 to 100 in 12.6 seconds. So for its time, for a car that was produced in 1953, in terms of my opinion, it was quick enough. It was quick enough, especially when you compare to the cars of today that we buy, the budget cars, and they're not so far in terms of acceleration. So let's just have a look at this car in terms of the design element. So I wouldn't say that it's a beautiful car or it's an ugly car in terms of the design, but I can surely say that the design was very functional and very applicable for the time. Like, you can surely see why like this company was producing tanks, because this car definitely looks like a tank. It just looks massive. Like, you can just see how it looks at the front with its chrome grille. It just says, get the hell away from me. Like, when you see it coming, you need to move. So it is very small air vents, which makes sense because the engine is not so big. It was a 6-cylinder. So in terms of the design element, I really like the tires, but I don't know what they were doing in terms of that middle part of the tire. That one, it just looks off. It just reminds me of a plate. Like, you could just remove it and eat on it. I don't know about this thick radio antenna. I don't know if back then they couldn't make it a bit smaller, but it was very massive. I don't know if on this video you can actually see how big this car is. This is a very big car, like even the front, like the distance from the first door until the front of the car, it's a very long car. But I like how it is at the back, like how the tire actually goes inside. So that's a very interesting design element of the cars from the 1950s all the way to the 1970s. That was very interesting in terms of the design element. So this is something that was not being done, and Pontiac helped in terms of introducing this kind of design on the market. So the back, definitely it just looks weird for me. Like, look how big the car is and how small the lights are, and the stopping lights, like they are very, very small. So as you can see, as I've noted, that this car is an American brand, which means that the steering wheel is on the left hand side. So definitely that's a good sign to have, so that when you're driving in front of people, they're not surprised why maybe you're taking so long in order to change the lane, because it's a left-handed side car and not a lot of people would be able to drive this car. I don't know how they were able to curve the glass at the back. I really don't know, but that doesn't seem like that was something that was easy to do. So the mirrors, like, look at my hands. Like, I know I have big hands, but the mirror is actually smaller than my hand. You can just imagine how you'll be able to see the tires. Like, the tires were inside, they were well protected, but in terms of the design, I really would like to wonder how were they doing it in terms of replacing the tire in terms of a punch. Inside of this car, it was full leather. They were very focused in terms of making this car to be as luxurious as possible. Remember, I said in 1953 this car did not have power windows. You can see you were winding up, you were giving your hand a bit of exercise. You will be giving your hand a bit of exercise. But the good thing is that at least you had windows, so you can just roll down the windows, then you would get enough air circulation. But for an old car from 1953, I'm not sure if this one has been restored recently, but the leather is still in very good condition. But the steering wheel, it's big, it's massive. Like this steering wheel is so big to a point that it's not ideal. So when you sit inside, the moment I put my feet under this steering wheel, it's actually touching my feet. So I don't know how you would drive, but it's a good thing that this car is not a manual car, because I don't know how you're gonna move your feet every time when you step on the clutch. So the good thing is that this car was an automatic. I really don't want to imagine what kind of automatic it was and how many gears it has. I can just imagine. I tried to find information in terms of that, but I couldn't really find information. And it also came with a radio. Everything was either it's chrome or leather in terms of the inside. I'm not sure if you can see in terms of the kilometers. I could hardly see. I think it is about 69,000 miles or kilometers. I think it was in kilometers in terms of the miles per hour, but I'll be lying. But those are the kilometers that this car has. Just look at the back, how massive the back is. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see nicely, but in terms of the knee room at the back, it's very massive. I tried to record, but it seems like there's a bit of an issue at the back, so I wasn't able to open to give you a clear view of the back. So that's it. That has been my review of the 1953 Pontiac, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you're still watching and you enjoy this kind of content that I'm making, please hit the subscribe and like the video. And if you have more cars that you want me to check out, leave a comment below and I'll definitely check out your comments. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.